Hey class, Professor Cisneros here. So we're going to do a wrap up of week 4 and talk a little bit about assignment 1. So in week 4, what you did was you had a country startup time comparison, and as you all know, what you did was you got some basic information about how long it takes to get the countries that we've been discussing over the past semester up and going. And then you were to make a comparison and put it into a Gantt chart, then put into a PowerPoint PowerPoint slides, and then decide which, based on the information that was presented, which countries that you would initiate, include in your study, and which you wouldn't. And of course, you needed to elaborate as to why you would or would not. Now, a couple of things. This was a fairly easy assignment or a fairly easy discussion board to go over, simply because there wasn't a whole lot of information to elaborate on. Now, as we get into assignment 1, there's going to be additional complications, and as things get a little bit more complicated, they get a little bit more realistic. So getting back to the discussion board, the most important thing to know and to be very, very cognizant of is when you're putting something like this together, you have to be absolutely sure of the timelines that you're presenting. You may do something like this for the rest of the team, so that way you can justify, if you are the project leader, to justify the countries that you've selected. And beyond that, you have to be sure, because if you say that a country takes, say, 6 months to get up and going, there's a lot of other there are a lot of other events, whether it's study drug resources, and that includes when you're going to be allocating and spending money, if you're going to be bringing on additional personnel, when they would be coming on. And if it takes double the amount of time that you have said it was going to, then it's going to throw many of those things off. You could actually have drug expiring well before you had expected to, and then have to replenish that. You may have people that you bring on board that won't have enough to do. So it can get very messy very, very quickly. So once again, be sure that you are very confident in the timelines that you are presenting. The second thing is, if you're putting it into a slide deck, make the slides attractive. It gets very distracting if you have everything scrunched over to one side, or if you have things that are falling off the bottom of the slides. For the most part, the slides were pretty good. There were some that could have used a little bit of work. So it's good to know how to use PowerPoint, learn some of the finer details about it, or get somebody to simply help you. Nobody's slides were terrible, but there were some that were scrunched up onto one end, and they could have been improved upon. Now, moving to assignment 1, what you're going to do is there's a list of additional factors that you're going to consider. You're to choose 5 of them. Take into consideration the details of the study as we presented them, and pick the most important ones. All of them could very easily come into play in a real life situation, but this is a feasibility. So it's you need to be thoughtful in which ones you pick for this initial feasibility. I was recently put on to a trial to sort of to oversee, and we were looking to expand it, add a lot more patients and whatnot, and so a second feasibility was going to need to be performed. I wasn't there for the initial one, so one of the things that I did was I asked the CRO to send me the original feasibility, and I started having a discussion with the rest of the team members, and what I found was that what it was originally sent over was, I don't know, about 50 questions, and a lot of them were very important, but you have to be, when you're at that stage, you don't want to get down to so much detail that hardly anybody's going to actually be able to be good enough for the study. At the same time, if you're going to be having a site fill it out, you've got to boil it down to just a few key questions. I would say less than 10. I think the feasibility that we're going to probably end up sending out will be somewhere between 5 and 10 questions. And you're much more likely to get honest answers and get a much broader picture of the site. Once you have that information, then you can start to get down into some of the finer details and address them at that time. But at this stage, again, look at what you have and pick, in this case, the 5 most important things. List them in order on your slides, from the most important down to the least. Make your slides attractive, appealing to the eye when you're actually presenting it. That's very important. And follow the directions, especially as it relates to the everything that you need to do. But I've noticed in the past that how people or how the students put their references together can sometimes also be very distracting. So take a look at the instructions, follow them, and you should do very well. So good luck, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the discussion board.